According to a Pentagon report, drug cartel violence could lead to the sudden collapse of Mexico. William Jeunesse reports on the White House plan for that scenario.
While the U.S. sends millions into Mexico to help defeat the drug cartels, Washington prepares for the worst.
We have seen the violence in Mexico spike.
As conditions south of the border deteriorate, the Department of Homeland Security is crafting a contingency plan to deal with the aftermath of a complete or partial collapse of the Mexican government.
We would certainly put in place the kind of support that would be needed to temporarily take care of those individuals that may feel threatened and feel the need to come across the border for protection.
The idea is to avoid a repeat of the Mariel Boat Lift in 1980, when more than 120,000 Cubans, including mental patients and convicts, fled the island and overwhelmed South Florida. That could mean building huge tent cities on the Mexican border and mobilizing the Coast Guard to evacuate refugees by sea.
We're going to need to provide protection not only for our own national security, but for these folks who represent an influx that is a direct result not of their desire to leave their country, but their need for protection.
Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano says the plan is a necessary precaution, which will only be set in motion if conditions in Mexico worsen considerably.
It will be expressed in terms of what are the factors that would lead me as the Secretary to determine that that plan needs to be deployed.
The plan is now under review by the border states, which will be on the front lines of any crisis. But all involved hope this plan will never be implemented, which is why this administration is investing hundreds of millions of dollars to stabilize Mexico now, which beats the much higher cost of rebuilding it later. In San Ysidro, California, William Jeunesse, Fox News.
Officials in border states like Arizona are asking for the Obama administration to do more to fight the drug violence spilling over into the U.S. Joining me now is Phoenix Mayor Phil Gordon. Mr. Mayor, are you seeing drug violence in your city, and how do you know that it's drug violence and not just violence local to your area?
Well, we absolutely are. First, let me emphasize the partnerships with the federal government agencies in Phoenix with our local police department have kept us a safe city. In fact, all the crimes, even the violent crimes coming across the border, are way down and the lowest of any major city in the country. Having said that, every night those drop houses are requiring more and more officers to go rescue kidnapped victims that have been smuggled across, that are being tortured or killed or raped. It takes 50, 60, 70 officers off the street. We have bad guys killing bad guys that have smuggled drugs and people in, and now it's the same groups doing this.
Wait a second, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that they kidnap other members of rival cartels in Mexico and then bring them into the United States?
What they're they're taking the people that are coming here to the United States, not legally, smuggling them across the border, putting them in what they call drop houses throughout the city, the valley, and in other places, and then hold them for additional ransom. And if people, their families, whether they're in Mexico or in Seattle or wherever they are, aren't paying that additional extortion money, then they're threatened and sometimes killed, tortured, and raped. We get calls every night. We're averaging at least one a day now, evenings, to go and find these people that are being held and tortured. In addition, you have the smugglers themselves of people and drugs, and they're doing it at the same time, going after their families to extort them, to give them the cargo, whether it's drugs or people. And then the drugs and the money, the guns and the money are then being smuggled back across the border to lead to that violence and help that violence that you just reported on. So we have to do a lot more. I am so grateful to the President and the Homeland Secretary, our former governor, who knows what's going on here, for the first step that they announced last week.
Yeah, but let me ask you about that if I can, Mayor, because they did announce they're going to send 500 more border agents there, primarily to look at the traffic going from the north to the south, both money and weapons, and also they're talking about some Black Hawk helicopters. Is that enough?
No, sir. I don't think most people realize we have 200 miles of border, which isn't a border. There aren't cities across each other like Juarez and El Paso, San Diego and Tijuana. This is wide open, 10,000 square miles of mountains and deserts and valleys that are impossible to totally guard, even with tripling what...
So give me a sense, because we're going to run out of time in a minute, Mayor. What would you like to see?
Number one, a lot more border agents, this is what I testified to, a lot more border agents within the urban core, DEA agents and FBI, and also ATF agents working with our local police to take off the heads of the snakes, these organizations, and focus on the worst of the worst. More agents on the border, more technology, like you just said, but not just a couple.
Mayor Phil Gordon of Phoenix, we want to thank you so much for talking with us, sir.
Thank you.